Originally, it began with a feature-length screenplay that I was trying to, get off the ground, and it was largely based on experiences that I'd had as a jazz drummer myself, with a very tough conductor, and in a very kind of cutthroat sort of world, a world that made music feel like life or death to me, and so I wrote this script, and for sort of obvious reasons, had trouble convincing people to finance a jazz drummer movie. And the idea, actually, I was lucky enough to find these producers in L.A., Helen Estabrook and Cooper Samuelson, who work with Jason Reitman and Jason Blum, and it was really those guys who had the idea to okay, let's see, maybe a way to actually get access to financing for this is to just take a scene from it and do it as a sort of standalone short. So we gave the script to J.K., who very charitably signed on for a short with no guarantee that it would lead to even a feature, and so we shot the first kind of extended rehearsal scene in the studio band room where Andrew was first kind of inducted painfully into that world, and we shot it, and that kind of helped get the ball rolling. I mean, it was basically exactly a year later that we were shooting the feature with Miles and J.K., and it it also kind of helped us get our feet wet a little bit. So. Miles I'd seen in his first movie, Rabbit Hole, and it came out around the same time that I was writing the first draft of the script, actually. And so it's when you see an actor you've never seen before, no one had seen him before on screen before that movie, just arrive fully formed, arrive as this sort of. The fact that he became the heart and soul of that movie in a very small but pivotal role. And so I remember watching it and kind of immediately thinking I have to find some way to work with him. And certainly he seemed to pertain to the role I was writing in the script, the role of Andrew. A few years passed in terms of revising the script, then finding the money, doing the short. So there was a little bit of a circuitous journey. But I even remember when I took the short to we took the short to Sundance to kind of, again, help give it a platform. And Miles was there that year with The Spectacular Now, which is another wonderful film of his. And I remember going to your Q&A at the Eccles Theater, where we later premiered Whiplash, sitting in the audience, silently planning my moves. And
it worked.
Like
you got me, baby.
Audience, yeah.
Oh man, you reeled me in.
And so I was lucky to, I was, in a way, I was just lucky that when the script did finally fall on Miles's lap, that he did it. So he was someone we kind of had in mind right from the get-go. And then Terry, really, once we had these two guys, it really became about shaping the world around them, and both with actors who I loved, like Paul Reiser and Melissa Benoist, but also real musicians. It was really important to me that most of the roles of most of the musicians in the film be played by real musicians or real music students, and so that was its own kind of casting process. Most of those people had never been on screen before, and
I wanted to do the film. I just finished Divergent, and I think by the time that ended to when we were starting, it was like 6 weeks. So I think I took maybe like 2 weeks just to kind of come back from Chicago and unpack my stuff, and then we jumped right into the rehearsals, which for me was basically Damien knocking at my door and with a drum set, and I told him I already had one, but it was in pieces and had dust all over it, so he brought his shitty drum set. We set it up in my basement and just kind of talked about music. He gave me Raging Bull and the movie Control and said these are movies I want you to watch, which I did not.
you did not.
I've seen Raging Bull before. It's a great movie.
And you still have my copy of Control.
I think I gave it back to you.
No, you did not. We'll discuss this later.
Semantics. And so I gave, so we did, started playing jazz music, and I had lessons 3 days a week for about 4 hours a day. And it was tough because even though I have played drums since I was 15 and I've played music my whole life, I played saxophone in jazz band, and I had a little bit of, knowledge with that, but for jazz drumming, I felt, especially once Damien told me that I would be the one playing, these songs, Whiplash, and he gave me the songs for Whiplash, and he gave me Caravan, and we plotted out exactly what measures I had to know, but for the most part, yeah, you got to be familiar with the whole song because just the way we were shooting it, a lot of the time it was either with playback or not with playback, but I was so scared to be messing up in front of all of these actual musicians. Right. So life imitating art, it was just all a very authentic experience. And except for being terrified of JK because he's such a softie. But yeah, just holding the stick, traditionally was such a weird feeling. And Damien and I have these beautiful, iPhone videos of my first few rehearsals, and I was just like, I can't do it. I was like, it feels just, does this look good? Because I feel just so stupid, moving around it. And slowly but surely, kind of got to a place where I felt really good moving around the kit.
We actually we shot most of a day in Fletcher's apartment, stuff with just me home alone, and there were several hints about what his life might have been at the time and prior to that, and Damien in his infinite wisdom decided not to use any of that in the movie, despite the fact that we spent all that time shooting it. And to leave Fletcher as a more mysterious character and not investigate his backstory. I never actually had a specific, this is why this guy does what he does, other than what we sort of established in those scenes that we shot, which was, this is a guy that used to have more of a life. Obviously, is a talented musician, had wanted to be a great jazz musician, is a very good jazz musician, piano player, conductor, but ultimately came to realize that his purpose in life was to find and cultivate greatness and to find somebody who had that potential and pull it out of them. And I've used this before too, but if pulling greatness out of somebody means pulling their internal organs out of them at the same time, that's okay, as long as I'm getting what I want out of this person, as long as I'm getting absolutely the most that this person has to possibly give.
I think a lot of music sequences in movies these days are, for my money, shot the wrong way. It's sort of there's the tendency these days is kind of almost imported from reality TV, where you get musicians on a stage or dancers or whatever. You set up 7 cameras, you roll them, and then you figure it out in the cutting room. So it was important to have a pre-plan kind of going in, and then to have Tom's very sort of acute sense of tempo and timing and rhythm to make those cuts feel just right, not just be a transposition of what had been kind of in the animatics, but really sing with the music.
This film, I always said, I think so many people can relate to it, because I think we have all had that teacher who really pushed us, saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. And I guess the question for the group here, if you can each just kind of address it in your own way, is there a limit? When is enough enough? And do the ends justify the means for greatness? Who wants to start?
I'll start because Damien should finish because he's the one with the brain up here, frankly. I'm not saying anything. Yeah,
It's true.
I think you have a brain as well. But Miles.
No, I meant of the people directly involved in the making of the film. Clearly, I think, as you said, most of us have had a mentor, a teacher, who was some kind of a version of this, pushing and pulling things out of us. For me, the closest thing I had was a couple of coaches in high school football who were just, over the line by a great degree. And I had some music teachers actually who were very inspirational and who were real perfectionists and who demanded a lot, and directors in both in theater and in television and film, but mostly in theater. In my very early days, who would sort of see the bag of tricks that I had learned, and appreciate it and see, okay, well, this is effective and that's working okay, but I'm not going to settle for that. You can do better. You can do more. I need you to show me this degree of subtlety or or whatever it was they were looking for. As far as the end justifying the means, I love that the film inspires that debate, and that the film doesn't answer that question for us, that there's an ambiguity there at the end and people take different things away from it. My personal take is I'd rather have a life and a pretty girlfriend if I was Andrew Neiman. That's my
True.
take on it.
Very true. Yeah, and similarly, I think, and it's the way that J.K. performed it too. You can kind of see, and he gets that great monologue at the jazz club at the end, but you can kind of understand the actual person behind there, and that it's not just somebody yelling profanities and vulgarities and yeah, because that's boring, and you've seen that. And nobody would give a shit about that character. And for me, I had a baseball coach that was just an asshole for the sake of being an asshole, and I didn't respect really what he was talking about. I didn't think he was all that informed with what he was talking about, and so that kind of went in one ear out the other. And then I had a theater teacher that would kind of tear you down and stuff, but with that particular teacher, it made me just want to work harder and prepare more. So I think everybody's different. I've learned as I get later on that maybe I like a little more tough love. When I was a young kid, 16, 17, maybe I was a little more vulnerable and probably would have got, as they say on Workaholics, I got a little butt hurt about it. I don't know if it's the audience for Workaholics, but yeah. So I think it's whatever makes you happy.